Okay, good afternoon, everybody. You are very welcome to our KWETB ePortfolio webinar. So it's a stormy afternoon everywhere, so we really appreciate you coming to join us for about the next hour and a half. So here presenting and supporting the event alongside me, we have our colleague Sandra Cleary from the quality team. And then from our ACE Digital Learning team, we also have Elaine Finnerty and Michael Deegan. So we're going to spend a little bit of time, hopefully, walking through the KWETB ePortfolio template and also the resources and supports that are available to everybody as part of that. So just very quickly, I suppose, to do a little recap of our ePortfolio project and where we're at. Back in 2020, 2021, we went on a journey into ePortfolio land as an ETB across FET. And back at the very beginning, we started off with 100 teachers who, I suppose, wanted to engage in trying out a new approach. And overall, in that length of time, the shared learning, the enhanced practice, and refining that template has meant that we have a really, I suppose, quality enhanced and high level approach to digital presentation for assessment processes across FET in the ETB. So it's lovely to be able to come back and provide some support, a couple of updates, and just to really reinforce I suppose the message around aligning our processes, trying to really streamline, particularly the administrative side of that, so that it's as easy and straightforward as it can possibly be. So we'll walk through that. It's lovely to see so many of those early adopters and advanced users joining us here today as well, particularly from the very beginning of this project. I'm not sure that there'll be any new learning or any new shiny tools for any of the advanced users today, but it's really about just reinforcing the processes and reinforcing the housekeeping. I know particularly over the last year, the quality team and Sandra there have been, I suppose, doing a piece of work on identifying themes and good practices. And it's important to reinforce that and call that out as well. And that will be part of what we talk about today. We're not going to take a slideshow approach with this. We're going to go straight in and walk through it live. So I will bring you on a little journey through our FETPD hub, right into, I suppose, getting your own copy of the template and bringing it across onto your Office 365 system. So we're going to do that live. So please do bear with me and follow along with that. Alongside that, if you have any questions, concerns, thoughts, or comments that you'd like to post into the Q&A, Michael is moderating and responding on the Q&A there, so you're more than welcome to join us in that form as well. This is one of the first key supports for this as we move forward into 2026 and the new year. As always, if there's any support needed, if there's anything there, you can contact us in on the channel on the hub, or you can get in touch with the team directly. There's also, as always, that open door there for any of the quality queries. You can get in touch with the quality office via Sandra there. But we're here to support the work that you do in that, and that's really important. Okay, so first up with that, I shall share my screen. And we're going to land straight into the FET professional development team. So this is our PD hub. So all of you should be hopefully familiar, and there's great to see active use in there on the hub. But we have our ePortfolio project channel in here. So you can navigate to that by just clicking on the channel. Mick has shared a post yesterday which actually brings together some quick links in one place to try and make navigation a little bit easier for you to find some of the key documentation. So linked in there, there's a direct link to the videos on the YouTube channel. There's also a direct link to the quality guides and some of the templates that are in there. So you can access that by just clicking directly on the link or on the document. But everything is contained within the files tab. So you'll see that there are some of the assets there in case any of the imagery has disappeared on you. There's also links to the guide for media evidence, video, audio. There's some quick visual guides there for workflows that you can actually even use with staff, your colleagues, or with students for adding paper-based assessments into the ePortfolio. There's some resources for teaching and learning with Class Notebook, and then also, of course, the templates for use in the ePortfolio. Like with all of the administrative pieces for assessment, have a chat with your coordinator, have a chat with your line manager. If there is locally approved templates at centre level, please do use them. But if there's not, there is a quality approved brief template, assessment schedule, provisional results sheet in both Word and Excel in here. And then also there's the templates for the authorship and submission statement. And then of course we have our ePortfolio template as well. So just to give an example, if you want to access the provisional results sheet template, you click in, navigate to the 3 dots and download your file. That's how you get access there yourself for any of those templates. Just download a copy, or if you want to copy it across onto your OneDrive into your KWETB cloud storage, again, click on your 3 dots, and from there, click copy to. Make sure to click on My Files, and then you can click copy here to copy it across onto your own OneDrive. So that's the process for pulling any of the documentation, templates, guides, either across onto your own cloud storage or down locally onto your PC or laptop. Okay, so to get your own copy of the template, I'm going to walk through that process now. So you again navigate to the FETPD team, click on the ePortfolio project channel, click on the Files tab. The Assessor ePortfolio template just contains the structure and layout for the Assessor ePortfolio, which would have formerly been known as maybe the tutor pack, the tutor folder, and the teacher folder. That's the Assessor ePortfolio. The Assessment ePortfolio, so the other ePortfolio template, also contains sections that are ready for learner evidence. As it stands at the moment, there's 2 approved processes in place for the presentation of evidence through the assessment process. One is a combination of the Assessor ePortfolio together with learner evidence in OneDrive. So both are presented via OneDrive, or all evidence, so the tutor or teacher pack and learner evidence is contained within the assessment ePortfolio, but again, presented via OneDrive. And later on in this session, Elaine is going to walk through how you do that sharing piece. So all of that will be step by step. For the purposes of today, we're really going to focus in on the Assessor ePortfolio only. So that's what we're going to do the demo in. But it's really, really important that Assessor ePortfolio template is populated and submitted for all modules, regardless of level. So to get your own copy of the Assessor ePortfolio, you click on the 3 dots and click copy to. The next step is really, really important. You need to click on My Files. And if you don't click on My Files at this point, what actually happens is you create a copy of it in the FETPD hub. So that means that ownership of that file and that file lives within our files. So you can't claim it, own it, you can't edit it. It's not moving across to your OneDrive at all. So it's really, really important that at this step, you click on My Files. That reroutes where the file is then saved and copied to your ETB OneDrive. That step is really, really important. So you can then decide if you're going to put it into a folder or if you're going to just copy the file directly onto your OneDrive as a file outside of a folder. For the purposes of today, I'm going to scroll down. I have a little folder created down here, down at the bottom, and I'm going to pop it in here for the purposes of our demo and click copy here. Keep both. So also it's really important that you let that copy happen in full. And so your progress bar will complete. If you interrupt that copy, you have the potential to interrupt the transfer of the file across to your OneDrive. So it's really important that you let that happen. Because I don't want to hold up our demonstration, I have one already to go. So I'm just going to go ahead and open that up here. So you'll see that the file that I copied across a second ago is showing in here as live, and it says a few seconds ago, but I know that that transfer hasn't completed. So I'm not going to open that right now because I don't want to interrupt the copy of the file. I'm going to open up the one that I created 20 minutes ago. Okay, so that now has opened up in the web browser. And one of the most common questions that we actually get in our face-to-face training is, how do I know that I'm in the web browser, or what is the web browser? So I'm in my internet window, or I'm in Google, or you might be in your Edge browser. When we're talking about accessing ePortfolio in a web browser in the internet, this is what it looks like. I'm on my Google Chrome here. So you can see by my clicking on my taskbar down the bottom, that's how I know that I'm in the web browser. Okay. To access the full functionality of OneNote and to operate in the way that we need to populate this, what we need to do is push it out to the desktop app. There was a slight change in the OneNote application following along with the upgrade to Windows 11, in that they've combined all of the old applications that were together into one. So the OneNote for Windows 10 desktop app is degraded, or it's no longer supported. So we're now using just OneNote. So what we do to access that is click on our little editing drop-down and click Open in Desktop. If you have all of your Windows 11 up to date and your applications using the new system, you should automatically be prompted to open in OneNote. It might ask you to choose, but you're choosing just open OneNote. If it happens that you don't have the OneNote on your device, you do need to contact either ICT support or raise a ticket through your line manager with GPS, just to make sure that you have the correct software loaded onto your laptop or device. And we are aware that some staff are still migrating or waiting on a migration to have the Windows 11 upgrade applied to their laptop or computer. So, keep asking for that because you really need the Windows 11 upgrade and access to OneNote at this point in time. Okay, so what we're going to do is take a very quick tour of the ePortfolio from the get-go. The new app is very, very similar. It's a little bit different in color. But I suppose the major change is you can have multiple notebooks open on the drawer, as I'm calling it, down the left-hand side. But again, the navigation is the same. So the left drawer on the screen are your sections. And then we have the pages within those sections. And then in the main window, you have the actual content. So we really like to think of it like a filing cabinet. So the left drawer is your drawers. Then the pages are the file dividers in each of your drawer. And then you have your paper in the window in front. So again, to open and close your sections or your section groups, you click on the little arrow to collapse them, and they open and close. So like that is the holder for my mainframe Assessor ePortfolio, and then we have a start here page. For anyone back in the day, which is many of the names on screen there, this module overview page is what would have been that A4 page that was stuck on top of your cardboard box. Then we have an assessor checklist, which is you signing off on the inclusion of all the documents and files that you need for administration purposes of assessment. You're really just saying what's in here. And we'll go through populating it in a second, but these are just the pieces that you need to complete. We also have an IV checklist in here. So from an assessor point of view, it's nice sometimes to maybe fill in the top part of that, but this particular page or form is completed at IV by your internal verifier. The next page is really just a map, so you don't need to do anything on that. And in the interest of modeling sources and IP, we do have a Creative Commons in here because our ePortfolio is actually shared and used externally outside of our organization. So that's really what that's about. But you don't need to worry about it. You don't need to do anything with it. Then we have the meat of our Assessor ePortfolio. So one of the changes here that you may or may not notice is that these are now actually alphabetized. So you have the assessment section, the results section, the procedure section, and the documentation section. So in the assessment section, it has placeholders available for you to customize to suit your module. And there is a placeholder for each of the 6 assessment techniques. We'll talk about how to customize them in a second. Within each one, you have the space for the documentation that's needed per assessment technique. For example, with an assignment, there is a space or a placeholder for your brief and your marking scheme. In the skills demonstration, then it's a little bit different. Again, it's a brief or potential list of instructions. The examination one is different again because it's your exam solutions and your marking scheme. So dependent on the assessment technique, they're a little bit different, but we'll talk about customizing them in a few moments. We then have a place for the provisional results sheet. The procedure section includes the assessment schedule, the assessment procedures, if there's integrated assessment, signposting for feedback, and then also a page for a register for exams. If the module doesn't have an exam, you can delete that piece out. But again, we'll walk through that when we're doing the population and when we're finished our tour. In the documentation section, there is a page for the component specification and the program module. So that is the Assessor ePortfolio in its totality. It creates a digital space that's organized, that's structured, and that's streamlined across all of further education and training in our E2B for that assessment process. So really, as the assessor, your role here is populating the module overview page, the assessor checklist, your assessment section, provisional results sheet. And I'll just note at this point, that's not the QBS sheet. That is a provisional results sheet, the procedure section, and then the documentation for the module. So the component specification and the program module. Okay, so that's that for the tour. Let's get populating and building. So what does that actually look like? I'm going to backstep and I'm going to come back into OneDrive for a second. So into my folder to get started. So how do I rename this ePortfolio? Okay, so I find my file in OneDrive. I click on my three dots, and you'll see when I click on my three dots there, I've actually lots of options. But for now, I'm just going to rename this one, and I'm just going to call it Communications Template. Okay, so I'm going to work this off the level 5. So I'm going to come back across then, and I'm going to come into my window, and I'm going to right click on the title for my Assessor ePortfolio, and I'm going to click to sync this notebook. And you'll see there that it's updated to reflect my rename. So when we're working in OneNote, it does auto save. But what we would recommend if you're populating, or if you're inputting a lot of documentation into OneNote, that on completion of that, you do right click on your overall notebook name and sync your notebook. Okay, that's just important to keep the tech healthy. We do need to do that. It's the tidying while we're working in the digital space. But what I'm going to do next is go to the start here page, and I'm going to go to my module overview. So what you're putting in here is each of your modules are linked back to an overall major award. So you type in what they will be. For the purposes of the demo, I'm just going to go with general learning. But if you're unsure, you can get this information from your coordinator or your line manager. I'm not going to pretend that I know they major award codes off by heart, but I do know that it starts with a 5M. Okay, so you'd input the rest, but you literally click and type. So your program module name, we have communications, and then the program module code is, in this case, 5M 0690 0690. Thank you, Sandra. So we type that in. The assessor name then, in this instance, is going to be myself. So typed it in. And then for the contact number, we recommend you put in the center contact number in that. So we'll just go with imaginary. But you type in and you can see that it saves, it is formatted, and you can go back and edit it at any time. That is the module overview page complete. So on to the assessor checklist. What you can actually do if you wanted to shorten the work a little bit for you, I'm going to highlight my actual name and press Control-C on my keyboard and come across to the assessor checklist, and I'm going to paste in my name, or you can type in directly. It's up to you. At this point, I'm not going to enter in the number of learners presented for assessment. This checklist is really the last thing that you should do. But I am going to show how to complete it. For each one, it's just a checklist for you to verify that you've completed and populated the ePortfolio. So the first item is the copy of the component specification. You literally click the box to add that in. Or if you've clicked it in error and you need to unclick it, you just click it again and it on-ticks. So you go down and you check off all your items, okay? Okay, so straight off, I know for communications level 5, there is no exam. So in the box here, I'm just going to type in NA. Okay, I'm going to tick for my marking schemes. There's not going to be any outlined solutions. So again, I'm typing in my NA. Okay. So you do that all the way down. And if you have any notes to put in, you can also type them in the box on the right hand side. But you click and type. That is the process. So again, then we said on the IV checklist, sometimes it can be nice to just fill in that top box for whatever colleague is going to be completing your IV. But again, you can simply Control C and then Control V to bring your information across. Or again, you can type in the box. You're not going to know the sample size, so obviously you would leave that blank. But that is pretty much the module overview, the assessor checklist, and just that top box to be completed. So next we're on, and I'm going to start from the bottom and work up. I'm going to start on the documentation section. So our component specification, it's really, really important that this is included. So you can find that openly on the web for any of the modules by clicking on the link that's supplied. I have it ready here. So I'm going to come in and find it, but it is the QQI documentation that outlines the learning outcomes for the award. So at this point, we're going to start inputting and populating the ePortfolio with files. That's effectively what we're doing. And we're repeating the same process over and over again for our component specification, our module descriptor, our assessment briefs, our assessment schedule, and our provisional results sheet. We're using one function, and it's the print function, and we do that on repeat. Just to note, it doesn't matter where you open the files, whether it's a PDF, a Word file, a PowerPoint presentation, an Excel file, in the cloud or locally on your machine. The process is the exact same. Once you can open the file and print it, you can add it directly into your OneNote ePortfolio. So I'm going to demonstrate this here just from this PDF in the web. I'm going to click on print, and the destination I'm going to choose as OneNote. So you just need to find it, and it's OneNote desktop. And I'm going to click print. At that point, you'll see my OneNote icon down on my taskbar is flashing a pale orange. It used to be a stronger orange, but it's a pale orange now. And then this is probably one of the biggest changes. It's not landing directly on the current page like it used to in OneNote for Windows 10. But what we are finding is it's always the bottom one on the option of this recent picks. So I'm just going to click on the component specification page because that's where I want it to go. And I'm going to click OK. Okay, so you'll see that it has added my file to the page. So if you want to tidy that up, you can click on the box just to highlight it and just press remove. At this point, you can decide for yourself on your housekeeping in terms of your presentation. If you want to close the gap that's there, there's actually a nice little feature in the new OneNote that does that for you, that kind of avoids having to drag any files up the page. If you click on the draw button, there's a little spacer icon there for insert or remove extra space. So you just bring it down and then drag your file up. Now, there wasn't a big gap there, but that was just me wanting to keep that tidy. But that is my component specification in, and that process is how you add any files, any documentation to the ePortfolio. So next is the program module. I'm going to just take out the placeholder in that stage. So your program module is your module descriptor. And just to show a slightly different version of that print function in play, I have the module descriptor saved on my desktop here, which is not something we recommend, but just for ease of purposes for demonstration, it's accessible here for me today. So at this point, my descriptor is open in Word. I've a clean down there just for longevity. So you can see that it's clean of logos and it says level 5 QQI award. So this time I'm going to use the Control P shortcut on my keyboard, but you can also go File and Print. File and Print. And we have OneNote desktop selected. But again, to find that, you click on the drop down beside the printer, choose the desktop option and click Print. I'm expecting my OneNote to flash. There we go. And again, this stage, I'm going to go to the program module page and I'm going to click OK. Okay. So it is important that you just read and cross-check that you're putting it on the right page. I'm again going to use my fancy little tool here, this little spacer on the draw tab, just to close my little space and drag that up. Okay, so that's my program module in. What I'm going to do next is I am going to go to my procedure section. Okay, so in this instance, I'm modeling this on communications level 5. So there is no register for the exam, and because it's going to be video submission for the skills demos, there's not going to be a register, so I can take this page out. But if you were including your register or your assign-in sheet for a skills demo in there, you would just print it in the exact same way that I did in the previous examples. So I'm just going to press delete. The feedback is really important that this is signposted. But at this point, you don't need to include any feedback in here. You are literally signposting. And there's 3 options there that are approved, or a combination is also okay. But it's really, really important that that feedback is then visible, as indicated here in this signpost in the learner portfolios, whether they be presented in ePortfolio format or in OneDrive. So there's the traditional feedback sheet approach. And if you're using the traditional feedback approach, you must follow the processes for that. So in that scenario, they should be signed off by the teacher or tutor locally. If you're using layered feedback, so you're maybe digital linking, or you're kind of correcting in hard copy, again, you signify and you tick the box, or the feedback and commentary is available with the marking scheme. Sandra's going to touch on those pieces a little bit later when we're looking at the good practice and quality enhancement approaches. But for now, I'm just going to tick the box to say that the feedback is layered on the submission page and that there's some comments with the marking scheme. So again, these tick boxes in the same process. If you tick it by accident, you just tick it again to untick the box. But I'm going to leave those 2. But this signposting needs to be completed and filled out. Then we have the integrated assessment piece. So there's 2 options for the integrated assessment, and it is the difference between having an integrated assessment where some evidence or an assessment is used across 2 modules. So a really good example of that is perhaps maybe the mock interview, where learners are asked to complete a mock interview as part of maybe communications and work experience. The difference being, is there an integrated assessment brief or not? And this is where you document that. An integrated assessment brief is where the same brief is used for both assessments. So dependent on your kind of local agreements and your local processes, it may or may not be one or the other, or you might have no integrated assessment. So if you have no integrated assessment, you don't need to do anything on this page at all. You just leave it as is. But if you do, you need to tick the box or untick it. Okay. So then we have the assessment procedures. So again, on this, I think it's generally pretty unlikely that you get away with delivery of a module without some form of compassionate consideration or reasonable accommodations. And there's also a box here for assessment malpractice. So this does need to be documented, but only at a very, very high level. So if the procedure was applied, you again tick the box. We might have had 3 applications for compassionate consideration. 2 for reasonable accommodations, and none for assessment malpractice. Okay, so in here you might detail that 3 learners applied for CC and were granted. Further details available with coordination. Because obviously we don't want to be including medical certificates in here in a learner portfolio. That information is sensitive, so that should be stored locally by the coordinator or centre managers or principals, and that's at a different level. But we just document kind of, you know, what was in here. And then the reasonable accommodations in the same, you would just give the high level detail. Again, we don't want any psychological reports or any personal details or information in here. And then lastly in the procedures is the assessment schedule. So it's the exact same process. You add using the print function the details of the assessment schedule, or you could decide that, you know, you're going to copy and paste them directly onto the page, but follow the local processes for that. But the details of the assessment together with the deadline dates need to be broken down per assessment at this point. Okay, so next I'm going to jump up to the assessments section. And if we model off the communications level 5 assessment techniques, it's made up of a collection of work and a skills demonstration. So in that instance, you can see we have an assignment, we have a learner record, and we have an exam, and we have a project that we actually don't need in this space. So all we do is delete out the sections that we don't need. To do that, you do close down your little drop downs just so that you hold the collection of spaces together, and then you right click and click delete. Again, onto the examination, right click and click delete. Learner record, right click and click delete. And the assignment, right click and click delete. Okay, so now we have a space for collection of work, and in this instance I'm going to just take out portfolio because it's not needed here, and skills demonstration. So in both of them you have the option to customize them. Okay, so again you would add your brief in here and your marking scheme. If it's an instance that you have both of them compiled, that is okay. All you do in that scenario is add marking scheme to the brief page just by typing it in. And then you would delete out the page for the marking scheme. Okay. Basically, it's just really important that you signpost clearly the layout, and that you follow consistently throughout in creating it. And again, if you just need to take that out, you just highlight it and delete it. Okay. So what if you want to divide out the skills demonstration and have maybe 2 holders here because you have 2 skills demonstrations that you want to present to? In that instance, you click on skills demonstration and click copy and then paste. So it gives you a new page holder. So then you can signify which they are. So for example, skills demonstration 1 and skills demonstration 2. You add in your brief or your list of instructions and your marking scheme for both, and then print that documentation in on the page. But basically use your own professional judgment and your approach locally, because this should match all the way through. If you have kind of 2 briefs for your collection of work, you would do the same in that instance. Click on the collection of work, right click, copy, and you can also right click and paste. I'm just a fan of the keyboard shortcuts, but you can right click to paste either. So that is how you add spaces or holders for the assessment techniques. And you really just use the print function to add into them. The last section then is the provisional results sheet. This should be one provisional results sheet inserted as a printout in here. Again, the QBS sheet should not be inputted into the portfolio. That goes into the coordinators folder with the quality office and that high level administration at this point. The provisional results sheet is your sign off as the assessor, signing off on the provisional results. So I'm going to do one final demo of the print function in here to pop in a provisional results sheet. So I have one over on my desktop here just for handiness. So provisional results sheet should contain the list of learner names, the numerical provisional result, and then the indicative provisional grade. So for example, Joe Bloggs, 68 merit. Okay, so you would have one for each learner. There should be no PPS numbers on the provisional results sheet. And again, follow the same process. You can go File and Print or Control P. It's the OneNote for desktop printer, but if you don't have that there, click on the little drop down arrow and click OneNote Desktop and then click Print. Okay, so I wanted in on the provisional results sheet current page, and then I click OK. Okay, and then as the assessor, to finalize your role in this process and sign off on your provisional results, you do need to add your assessor signature in at that stage to confirm that the results and all the processes and procedures have been followed in line with the single quality assurance framework. So that is really it on populating your assessor ePortfolio. When you get to the point up to having the results sheet in, so just before you put your results sheet in, I would strongly recommend, and I know the team here as well, particularly Elaine and Michael, would strongly recommend that you create a copy of it when it's populated with all of the documentation in there, so that you have a master template, so that each year you're not going back to repeat the work. You're literally taking another copy of that template that's already populated. You might need to update kind of a brief or marking scheme or the exam paper year to year assessment process through, but so that you don't have to build from scratch each time. And I'll quickly demonstrate how to do that. But before I do, I'm going to keep my tech clean and tidy, and I'm going to click on the name of my ePortfolio here, and I'm going to go sync this notebook now. Okay, because again, it's really important that we just keep that tech clean. I'm going to pop across just to my OneDrive quickly, and in here I have my communications template. I'm going to make a copy of that literally by clicking on the associated 3 dots, copy to, and this time I'm just clicking copy here. Then I'm going to click on my 3 dots, rename, and I'm going to call it my master template. Okay, and update. Hang on. To go again. Have a little bit of inception going on here. Click on my 3 dots and click rename. There we go. It's remembering what I want and update. Okay. Okay, so I now have my master template in here. And that is it with the build and population. this moment in time, I'm going to hand you over to Elaine, and Elaine is going to walk us through how to share it with the quality office and that piece. And then I'll be back in another few minutes and we'll carry on again. Over to you, Elaine.
Thank you, Ashley. Hi, everybody. So at this stage, we are ready to share our folder with the EA as part of the assessment process. So to do that, there's two different ways, and I'm going to walk you through both of them. So just let me share my screen. Okay, so around the time of the assessment, as part of the EA process, you should receive an email from Sandra, which will have a name called folder for EA. In my case here, it's called test. Thank you, Sandra, for setting that up for me. And basically in there is the folder where you want to populate your ePortfolio, completed, fully assessed, ready to go, to part of the EA process. Okay, so to do that, I'm just going to go back to my OneDrive. So to start, go to your OneDrive, go to your files, find your assessment ePortfolio that you want to share, and that has been allocated as part of the EA process. So I'm going to click on my Portfolio Project 25 folder, click into my Communications module, and the notebook I want to share is, I have it called here AB Communications. So I'm literally going to click on it, and I am going to go to my three dots up at the top, copy to, and then I'm going to click on the shared, which is just sitting below my files on the left-hand side of my screen, because Sandra has already shared the folder with me. So when I click there, it will come up in my shared list. And you can see that my test folder for EA is sitting on the top of my list. So I'm going to click into that. And now I need to just navigate through the folders within this EA folder so that I can find the location that I want to put my communications ePortfolio assessment notebook into. So literally going to test, click on test, click on the major award. There's two folders in here. One is for the EA, so I don't need to go near that folder. And the other one will say minor award for EA, and that's the folder I want to populate with my ePortfolio assessment for communications. So I click on that, and I'm literally going to click copy here. And you can see in the taskbar down below that it is copying and it's making its way across. So if I just go back now to the shared folder and I open it, you can see that if I click through this and navigate again into major award, into the minor award folder, you can see that my communications ePortfolio notebook has been copied into the EA folder. So that is option one. We highly recommend that you use the copied method, purely because it means that your own ePortfolio in your own OneDrive is left completely separate, that you have it as a backup plan, that it's there, that nobody interferes with it, that it's the original and it remains untouched. But some people like to copy the link, so I'm going to show you how to copy the link now. So I'm going to go back to my OneDrive. I'll just click off the folder for a second. And again, to make the link, I click on the notebook I want to copy. I copy link. And in here, you'll have a little window that opens up, and I want to go into settings. And it's very important that when you're copying and sharing a link, that you give permission to everybody within the KWETB. So I'm going to click on everybody within KWETB has access to my link, but I also want to make sure that everybody who needs access and is using it can edit it. So I make sure to click can edit, and then I apply. Okay, so I now have my link copied. I then navigate back to my folder, and I'm going to put the link now into the EA folder. So to do that, I go to the blue button up the top that says create and upload. I click there. I scroll down to the bottom and click on link. And you'll see a window comes up here, and I'm going to Control V to put my link into the window, and then I'm going to call it communications, and we'll call it 26 for purposes of the video today, and I'm going to go create. And it'll take a few minutes for it to come across. And sometimes I find just with my own system that it doesn't show up immediately. So I just go back a step through the file process. And then if I click on my minor word again, you can see that the communications link is now in the EA folder as well. So they're the two options that are available for you to use to upload your EA, to upload your ePortfolio assessment for EA. And you only share the ones that are being EA'd. You don't need to share all your ePortfolios. Okay, so that's how you share them. I'll just go back now and hand you back to Ashley.
Thanks, Elaine. Okay, so that's the sharing piece. And again, as Elaine said there, the critical piece of information in that is setting the permissions on the link. And that's really important. Otherwise there will be access issues, and there'll be phone calls needed. So to get that right in the first instance will make a big difference. Okay. So what we're going to do now is just run through kind of just some extra pieces of information, but also just around kind of digital learning pieces, quality processes, and just some, I suppose, reinforcement of some of the guidelines for those pieces that are out there already. So to what's first? I just want to signpost some of the resources that are there in the hub. We still have the active YouTube channel there, that we will work on updating over time. But the majority of those videos, even though the software has upgraded, the process is still pretty much the same. So it can be a useful place to go if you need a bite-sized clip of how to do something, if you need visual steps. So that channel is still there and still active. And there's there's videos step by step on each element of that process in there. Again, just to signpost the file tab on the ePortfolio project team. There's templates in there for use. There's support materials, and then there's also quality guides. And we'll touch on them in a minute. But all of those files are accessible and can be downloaded in on the files tab in the ePortfolio project channel. So next then is just a reminder of our technology or digital learning wheel that we have across the organization. And it's just a reminder that kind of now I'm noticing there it does need a slight update in the sense that we all know that Flip has retired, but in general for the mainframe, anything you see on screen is approved for use from a digital learning perspective. So any of the applications there, and for anyone teaching and learning in OneNote, a lot of them integrate and embed there and can be really useful for supporting learning and even assessment. It's just really important kind of when using external tools or any of the single sign-on functionality that you are using your KWETB Microsoft 365 account at all times with any learner data. That's really important across the board. As we're moving to a place where I suppose we're trying to design really inclusive and accessible and also valid and interactive, fun and engaging learning experience for our learners across FET. You know, building on universal design for learning, I suppose responding to create more robust or valid assessments as AI is coming on stream. We do have a guide there, and there is encouragement and recommendation, you know, to provide multiple modes of engagement with assessment, whether that be in video recording, a podcast, voice recording, you know, your traditional typed report, paintings or models. It could be an artifact, photos, or a mix of multimodal evidence. There is a guide there that you can refer to, that really just gives a frame for helping you to design multimodal assessments, and that can be quite useful. So, for example, one of the things that's specified in there is the volume of evidence. So there's an indicator in there for, you know, kind of if it's typically a 500-word piece, what does that look like in terms of a recording or a presentation? And so all that information is available in the quality quick guide. So I'm going to hand over to Sandra just to take us through some of the nuts and bolts, just so that I suppose it's clear what we're talking about when we're talking about the QQI language around the housekeeping and administration. So over to you, Sandra.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. The quality team, one of our roles within the quality team is that we identify themes arising across our authentication processes, and we implement actions which are approved then by our QA subgroup and our quality council. And one of those was the need for, as in the previous slide, a multimodal guide, so that centres would know what modes to use, how to use them. So I would encourage everyone to engage with that guide. It was developed by QAPD, and it's available there on the PD Hub. So it's a very useful guide, because we had been, previous to that, we had multiple various a complete array of different modes being used, and they were crashing. EAs couldn't access them. They were too big. The files were too big. So this actually sets out how to do it. So please do engage with that. Since people have been engaging with that, now we haven't had any feedback from EAs on the lack of that they can't access video evidence. So also, as Ashley said earlier, the tutor ePortfolio is the minimum requirement for ePortfolios. You can upload the learner evidence in OneDrive. So Elaine shared with you there the ePortfolio, what the folder I would share if it was learner evidence as well. There would be folders there for learner evidence, and you would populate it with learner evidence. But if you are using the full ePortfolio, the learner evidence will be in the ePortfolio. But I know for the purpose of this demonstration, we're just talking about the learner or the tutor ePortfolio. So, but that is the minimum requirement. KWETB are fully online now. Hard copy evidence is only permitted under extenuating circumstances, which must be previously approved by the Quality Office. And we have been like that since 2021, but since July 24, it's a minimum requirement that the tutor folder is in ePortfolio format. So also do ensure that your ePortfolio template is the current up-to-date version. There has been several iterations since the inception of ePortfolios in 2021. We still are seeing ePortfolios, maybe the version 1 or 2. So please do ensure that you populate, for consistency, you are using the most up-to-date version. All sections of the ePortfolio must be populated. And this should be verified when IV is carried out, that like the component descriptor, the module descriptor, that everything is populated and there's no folders when you open up. This folder is empty. We shouldn't be seeing that. Every section of the ePortfolio must be populated. In the document folder, you must upload the component spec, which, as Ashley said, is available on the QQI website. You must upload the module descriptor. Make sure that it is the current up-to-date module descriptor. There shouldn't be feed tag, or you can remove the logos to minimize content across the ePortfolio. You can remove the logos. And especially important now with our new CAS Revise modules, that if you are delivering the new version of communications, that new module descriptor is uploaded. There are 5 steps then to our QA authentication process. We have IV, EA, RAP, appeals, and certification. So the assessor starts with the tutor, where the tutor devises the local devised assessment, the brief. They devise their brief, they devise the marking scheme, the learner produces the work, the tutor marks and grades the learner evidence, and feedback and provisional grade is given to the learner. And this is all those processes are uploaded into the ePortfolio. So just move on to the next slide there, Ashley, please. Okay, so as we said, the component spec must be included in each portfolio, and authorship statements should be used. So if you are completing the ePortfolio for learners, you do not have to upload the brief into each of those folders, but it must be uploaded to the Assessor ePortfolio. The EA must be able to access the briefs. And if it's, as I say, if it's in the learners, if you're producing the learner evidence, you do not have to upload it to the brief. It's just to minimize the workload and the content within the ePortfolio. Okay, thanks, Ashley. Okay, so the LDAs, the locally devised assessment. So you can find the template for this in the PD Hub, or check with your centre. There may be a centrally devised local brief which you must use. Delete the sections that are not relevant. As Ashley said earlier, just delete whatever is not relevant to your module, you delete it. The brief should be clear, well constructed, and must identify the learning outcomes to be met. Marks should be broken down. So if the marks on the marking scheme are 10 marks, you must break them down so the learner knows what marks are allocated and what learning outcomes they refer to. You should not copy your brief from the module descriptor. And as in the new CAS review modules, and also in a lot of the new micro-quals, it actually includes sample briefs. These are not to be used. These are just used for sample only. It's up to the tutor to devise their own LDA. Okay, thank you. The assessment schedule then. So this sets out the timelines, the learning outcomes that are being met. It must be populated. This is something that the EA will look at. And the provisional results sheet, then again, Ashley has referred to that must be uploaded into the provisional results sheet. Tutors do not upload the QBS. The QBS is the responsibility of the coordinator. They upload it to the EA folder, which we saw when Elaine shared the folder. So within that EA folder, the IV report is uploaded and the QBS result sheet. And that is the first folder that an EA, before they go near the ePortfolio, they will look into the the EA folder. They will be able to see the IV report and the QBS result sheet of which they select their sample. Ashley. Feedback then, so Ashley touched on this, so you must identify in the feedback tab, you must identify where the feedback is located in the ePortfolio. This cannot be left blank. It can be in 1 or 2 or 3 sections, but it must be identified and signposted for the EA. There's no requirement to document formative feedback, although it must be given, but you must document the summative feedback. And a theme that's coming across now is what we are seeing across some ePortfolios, where a tick, well done, good work, and that is not feedback. Feedback must be constructive, it must be specific, it must be useful, it must show the learner's strengths, it must give the learner indication of how they can improve. So that is something that we will be working on in January, and it's coming back in EA reports that feedback needs to be more substantial. So just to kind of be aware of that, when you are giving your feedback, be it in the traditional feedback sheet, be it layering it onto submission page, or giving it a feedback available on the marking scheme, it must be relevant. Thanks, Ashley. Yeah, there it is there. So the summative feedback, that's just kind of summarizing it there. So that's kind of the important takeaway, I think, for today, is just kind of work on the feedback. There's some excellent practices of feedback, and we are getting EA reports of excellent. I mean, we do look at, as well as looking at the areas of improvement, we also look at good practice. And I mean, there's some excellent feedback that is being provided to learners. And the signature guide then as well, this was another theme that was arising across centres where, especially at the ePortfolios, some and OneDrive, what does the learner need to sign? What does the tutor need to sign? The coordinator, the QA, the EA, the IV. So we developed, again, it was a QA PD piece, and it's available on the PD Hub on what needs to be signed in relation to whether you're presenting learner evidence in ePortfolio or learner evidence in OneDrive, and for the Assessor ePortfolio, what needs to be signed. So again, I would direct you to that on the PD Hub. And again, all signatures to be scanned or digitally typed signatures are not acceptable. Okay. And you're back to there, Ashley, there for the video evidence.
Thanks, Sandra. So it's just around the presentation of video evidence. It's just a real kind of touch on it, because I know we're not talking about the learner ePortfolios today, but we just wanted to kind of signpost on it that if you are presenting learner evidence in ePortfolio, that there's two kind of approved use cases at present for that. One is via Microsoft Stream, or the other is via a closed YouTube channel. But again, like with all the guidance, have a chat with your line manager. What is the agreed processes locally there? And as much as possible, it's always advisable to try at least to take a consistent approach centre by centre. It just streamlines the work process, but also the access to the centre as a whole. So a playlist there can be quite useful in that scenario. And coming from the good practice that was identified at EA and the, I suppose, recommendations towards quality enhancement, there was just two kind of key pieces there to point to as well. And that as much as possible, video evidence should be used to demonstrate skills and evidence skills, and as much as is possible and practical, unless there's a good reason not to. And then the other thing is that tutor verification, whilst kind of used in the past, is no longer in line with good practice for assessment, and tutors or teachers or educators should not be signing off or verifying skills for students. And there should be real life evidence there presented in the assessment ePortfolios. But it was just to touch on that. And I guess really what we're going to do now is just take a check and see if anyone has any questions, any comments, or any queries at this point. If there's anything there. Michael, did anything kind of come up?
So there's just one question there from Tina Tyrrell, and she's asked, hi, with the permission, do we as assessors give the permissions, or is this done by the coordinator line managers? Now Elaine has put a response in there. Hi Tina, you're responsible for giving permissions as the assessor for that particular ePortfolio to be shared with the EA. Do you want to expand on that at all, Ashley? Or
yeah, I might just expand on that a little bit, and kind of first off, I'll ask for forgiveness if I'm not responding to the right scenario in this. I'm assuming that that's in terms of Elaine's piece there around the sharing or the adding that ePortfolio and it could be in two scenarios there, because we're conscious here that different centres have different approaches, and there's two main use cases in this, and both are absolutely fine. in some of the larger centres, or where there's very large staff teams, some teaching staff may be adding their link or their ePortfolio directly into that quality office file. In other use cases, in other scenarios, there may be a local Teams or SharePoint or OneDrive folder where staff have their own folder for adding their link into. But it doesn't matter in either use case. When the teacher, the tutor, the educator is sharing that ePortfolio across for submission for assessment or presentation for assessment, it is the responsibility of the educator to set the access permissions to people in KWETB with edit access at that point. And that is critically important. When it comes back to the file management piece, the owner of the file sets the permissions, and nobody can override those permissions, even at a higher grade. The IT systems don't kind of manage access like that. So that initial setting of the permissions to people in KWETB can edit is really, really important. If not, your coordinator and the quality office are going to have to go back to you and ask for that link to be recreated and regenerated with those permissions. It causes a headache if it doesn't come through in the first instance in that form. So that's a really, really good question, Tina, and thank you for asking.
Karen Walker has just pointed out, one of my tutors had an issue with Microsoft Stream recently. It seems it has been renamed.
Okay, Corinne, if you want to contact us directly on that, we can take a look. We would need more detail on that to be able to support, but happy to look into it or help if you want to get in touch directly.
So Patricia has asked, when we change over to the new OneNote, will the ePortfolios we have already set up be brought over automatically?
Yeah, no, that's again a really good question, and one that we want to kind of reinforce with confidence on. The change of app or the migration to Windows 11 won't have any impact on your current ePortfolios. The app is really just a vehicle for you to access and interact with it. It won't have any impact on your ePortfolios as they stand. Basically, when the migration is complete and you have your new Windows 11 and your new OneNote app, you just go into your OneDrive account, find the file, click to open it, and open it in the OneNote app, and it will appear in its new form, in its new home, in the new OneNote app for you. So hopefully that brings some confidence with that. Okay.
So there doesn't seem to be any more questions unless anyone wants to get them in really quickly.
We might give 1 or 2 minutes more just in case there is, but we're also conscious there that it's a stormy evening. So particularly for anyone that needs to still get home, please do feel free to wrap up at this point. And we really thank you for you coming along today. And as always, if there's any support needs, if there's any questions, or if you're unsure, please do feel free to point them in to either the quality office or to ourselves in the FET PD hub. Elaine will be keeping an eye and monitoring that ePortfolio channel moving forward. So if you're posting in there, please do feel free to tag Elaine in your post, and that will just help to bring attention to the fact that there's a post in there. And Elaine can either then redirect, help or support or guide you to where we can get you answers depending on what it is. I know sometimes the queries may land in there, but sometimes we do need to divert to get support or help or assistance from either ICT or GPS or quality, depending on where that query lies. But happy in the first instance for it to be posted in there on the team. And just to note as well, it's really good to have it shared in there and to keep that community of practice feel going. And we still encourage and support peers to respond to peers and help each other out across the wider organisation. And that community of practice piece is really, really important. But otherwise, I think looking at the Q&A, that is us for this afternoon. But again, if you need anything, or if there is kind of any suggestions for improvements, modifications, happy to take feedback on it. If there is any feedback on the template or the approaches, or if there's any recommendations for consideration, as always, they can be sent on to Sandra and myself, and we'll look at them when the reviews on these pieces of work happen. But otherwise, thank you very much for your time, and it was great to connect again.